What's good? What's good, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to I think this is our fourth episode of. We're excited to have our
I think
special
so.
guest, Adrian Wilkins, and always good to have you, Mr. Kenny. How you doing today, Kenny?
That is all. That is awesome.
Awesome,
It's my
awesome. How you?
favorite.
It's great meeting you. Great meeting both of you. I saw the last podcast that y'all did with my homie.
Nice, nice, nice. We're There's gonna be a special podcast. I think we have to start with the most obvious. Mr. Adrian, talk to us about your shirt. When you're talking about one of
Oh,
the OGs of animes, let's go.
Dragon Ball Z. Gotta love it. That show put me through, but it got me through a whole lot of stuff growing up. And I'm old.
Yep, yep.
I've been a fan of Dragon Ball when Goku was a little baby boy when he killed his grandfather.
Is that when he turned
And
into an ape, right? He turned into an
yeah,
ape.
when he's turned into the
Yep.
great ape and stepped on Gohan. I'm gonna show
Stepped
y'all
on
something real
Gohan.
quick too. We'll talk about
Oh,
that.
please, please. Come on. Let's
Oh,
go.
Oh
Let's
wow.
go.
and one of them just fell out. That would fall out on me, but yeah,
Bro, dude, do you know how many universes, planets have died over
Amazing.
those things, man? That's a real thing right there.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
love it. And those are small ones. I mean, a friend of mine got the ones that's like that big around.
Hmm.
I'm like, man, you got the Namek size balls.
Dude, you know what'd be cool is if they I think they should do this because Pokemon kind of did this with the Pokemon Goes. If they disperse the seven Dragon Balls like throughout the planet, like throughout and just scatter them. And if you're able to collect all seven of them somehow, like there should be like $1 million cash prize or something.
Yo,
That would
that would
be,
be.
you know what I'm
That's
Oh,
not a
talking
bad idea.
about?
man, the amount of people running around.
Oh my god, dude, you'd be
It's the
burning so
Dragon
many,
Balls. Oh
bro,
yeah.
bro, bro. You put $1 million on there, you're gonna have people working out, exercising like they've never exercised, bro. People will
Look,
be dropping.
people will learn how to swim. I would be one of those people. I swim like a rock.
I can just see the news right now. We have seen a surge of the ability of black men and women being able to swim. It has increased, right? All the swim training classes are booked. Black people will be
Thanks for
getting on
shot.
that. Dude, Mr.
I
Beast.
don't
I
know.
if I could talk to Mr. Beast, I would suggest that idea to him because I feel like he has the
He got the money.
resources. He's got
Oh,
not
he,
only the money, but he's got the connections too.
yeah. And that is
Bro,
something that he would probably do. My niece, she lives with us, my wife and I, with her father. She loves Mr. Beast. She's eight
oh,
years old. She comes in, she's like, I see what Mr. Beast is doing. I'm like, the same thing he did yesterday. But
dude,
she loves that dude.
it's interesting how because I'm one of those believers that you can solve cancer today, and someone's gonna be upset you didn't do it yesterday. He recently
Hmm.
got in trouble from people in Africa because he apparently went in over a weekend and opened up like 300 wells across country
Hmm.
or across the continent of Africa. He like opened them up, and a group of I guess there was like a specifically black community that had been trying to do something like that, and they were upset with the fact that a white person kind of came in and did this, right? And it's like, look, it's the person saving us. I'm just like, it's unfortunate that like it doesn't matter what, you can't just celebrate the fact that 300 wells got opened up. Let's just, who cares who did it?
That's,
But anyways,
I mean, that goes to something that happens all over the world, especially like in churches and whatnot. If it's not their idea,
yeah,
they don't want to have anything to do with it. And it's so sad and unfortunate because people are getting help.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, the wells are open. The wells are getting dug.
yep,
That means clean water is getting to people today that didn't have clean water yesterday.
correct,
And who knows what that clean water can do in terms of hygiene and health and whatever the case may be. Celebrate the fact that something good happened
Yeah.
correct,
instead of arguing.
correct, correct. Well, Mr. Adrian, we're really, really excited to have you. Like, this is great. Kenny and I have never met you before, so this is new to us, just like it'll be new to the listeners. But we'd love to hear
Hey,
just a little bit about your backstory. I mean, you can go back as far as when you first watched Dragon Ball Z, but we'd love to kind of get a snippet of what's about who you are.
Ah man, I'm a 6'5", 285 pounds, lover of comic books.
You said so. I'm a giant.
Oh, no, why did this take me to? Have you ever seen that Key and Peele skit when it talks about when they're like on the auction block? Have you seen that one? And it's like the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
person
yeah,
that Adrian would be the first to go. He said 6'8", two
Oh
hundred
man.
eighty five pounds. They said, "Yep, that's the one to
Sweet
want."
Lord.
I mean, I used to weigh. I mean, just think about a few years ago, I was at 350. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy about that weight
No,
loss because that congestive heart failure kind of make you be like, you gotta lose some weight. But,
hey,
yeah, I'm tall. I've always been the one of the biggest people in my class, and the crazy thing, I was not always the biggest person. I had one guy who was 7 foot when I graduated high school, 7 feet tall. But I love comic books. It got me through high school in English because I was not good in school. I hated school. I hated it with a passion, but it got comic books got me through, and X-Men. Then I came across Dragon Ball Z shortly after I graduated from high school. I got in Dragon Ball Z like, yo, this is bananas. I mean, the stories took too long at times for my liking. I mean, you have about 2 or 3 episodes of Goku yelling and everything. I'm like, come on, man. But
if you're
I,
lucky, it's only 2 episodes, man.
if you're
When he
lucky,
goes Super Saiyan 3, bro, I think it's like an hour and a half movie, and I think it's like an hour and
just
10 of it is just screaming.
just to watch his hair grow. And have y'all seen Dragon Ball Daima?
Yeah. So I'm 3 episodes away from catching up.
I won't say anything then. I won't spoil anything then.
I mean, I know what the endings are. Yeah, like I know what the
Yeah, yeah.
spoilers.
You
Yeah, yeah,
you saw what happened with
yeah.
Goku. Finally,
They
like, oh, they
canonized
made
it.
it canon.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
they
yeah.
made it canon finally. But
So essentially, they took GT with Dragon Ball Super Saiyan 4 and Super Saiyan 3,
yes,
and they're putting
yes,
it. They're making it canon. Apparently, it was the last thing that Toriyama apparently
yeah.
was able to do before
Before
passing
he
away.
passed,
Yeah.
which
So
is awesome. And he looks great. I mean, Goku looked nice at Super
mm,
Saiyan 4 the way they have him. I'm like, oh snap!
yep.
But I wonder how they're gonna work that in with Super now. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because they're supposed to be before Super. I'm like, well, if they happened before Super, why didn't? And people are already saying, why didn't he go Super Saiyan 4 when he met Beerus?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll find some good
They'll find
excuse
some
for it.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I also love pro wrestling. I
Yes.
Now my father got me into pro wrestling by taking the TV from us when we were growing up. Where we growing up, we watched Saturday morning cartoons. We were excited, sitting down with our bowl of cereal. 11 o'clock, like clockwork, he'll come in, turn the TV. The NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions. And at first we were mad, like, man. And black household, when the TV get turned on by a parent, you watch what they're watching.
Oh, yeah. Sweet
And
Lord.
if you didn't want to see what they're watching, you go outside or something. Or you sit there and you keep your mouth shut before you get your lips knocked off. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, my brothers, my two younger brothers now, we like, man, and they were like, man, I'm tired of this. I'm going outside. Now, at this time, I grew up in South Carolina. The summers were brutal. So it's like at 11 o'clock in the morning and it's like 95 degrees outside. You just heard me say I was always a big boy. I was big and lazy. I was not about to go outside and sweat on purpose. So I sat down and I'm like, I'm gonna watch this pro wrestling thing. And with my father now, although we never really, banged together like that, that's what brought, we bonded over that. So I mean, I got into love with championship belts. You probably see a couple
I
over
was
here
about to say
behind me.
that. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
I fell in love with championship belts. I fell in love with wrestling, and it led to me when I eventually moved to New York from South Carolina back in 2002. I started pro wrestling training. which was a lot of fun. I went under the name Supreme Knight, and then
Yo, hold on. Say the name one more time.
Supreme Knight.
Let's go. Oh, that's dope. Okay.
Because at first I went just by the name Supreme because it was a
Okay.
joke. It was just a joke at one time. When I had hair, I was like, when I had a fresh haircut, I was the supreme being. And people said, when I started, I would dress up in a suit with a tie, and I would wrestle in that suit. And people were like, "You look like Suge Knight." And I had a cigar. I didn't
Yo, I was
smoke
about
or
to say that
anything.
though. I was
They're
about to say
like,
that.
"Yep." They're like, "You look like Suge Knight. You Suge Knight's little brother. You killed Biggie. You killed Tupac." And sometimes, and at that moment, I was like, and the promoter I was working with, he was like, "Yo, the fans will name you. The fans will give you a name that you can work with for the rest of your life." And they said Supreme Knight. And I'm like, for real? I'm like, and it's stuck with me ever since. And everything I do, whether it's on Twitch or even church or whatnot, Supreme Knight.
I like that. I like
And
that.
I went through that. I working in. I did some comic book writing. I can't draw stick figures,
Yep.
but I wrote comic books for a little bit. I've done a whole bunch of crazy things, and now one of my things is I stream WWE 2K24 on Twitch. I
Yo,
run a
people
I run
don't
an e.
realize. People
Say it
do
again.
not realize. People do not realize how awesome WWE video games are. There's a lot of sports you can enjoy watching. They're not fun to play.
Right.
WWE is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable to play.
Yeah, and I mean I don't play it. I just run. I mean I'm horrible at video games. I remember one time I played Fortnite and I landed. As soon as I landed, I
You're
got
done.
killed.
Yep.
That was the first and last time I played Fortnite. I'm like, you know what? That's not for me. I mean, I'm going to try Marvel Rivals at some point,
hmm
but with WWE 2K24 and the new one's coming out for those who pre-ordered, it drops next Friday. I'm gonna be getting it. And I run, like I said, I run an eFed through that. People send me their characters, I download them, and I hold a promotion. I made a promotion, and we had matches. I make championships, and we it's a lot of fun. I would stream on Twitch, have people talk trash to each other on Discord, on Facebook. It's just a lot of fun. And my thing is, we're just trying to have fun in a world that will make you go. See all this gray hair? I'm only 50. I'm only
Hey,
50. Oh,
some call it
I,
stress, some call it wisdom.
I'm going for it. You know what? I go with wisdom.
There it is. There it
But
is.
in the world crazy, we need a place where we could just get away for a couple of hours, have
hmm
some fun, and just forget about how the world is.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
when you play, how do you, are there other people playing and you're just like, you're the promoter of the show? How does it work?
What I do AI versus AI, or the old school computer versus computer. Now there are some people who do like lobbies or whatnot and run their promotion through where the two people play against each other. The reason I don't do that is because you don't know if you get two people with good connections,
Yep,
good
exactly.
internet connection, and I want everyone to be on an equal playing ground, and I don't want people to be like, well, your internet messed up. That's why it lagged. That's why I lost. And some people will be like, it's raining outside. That's why your internet running bad. So I just do AI versus AI. Everyone can choose their move sets and everything. The AI tendencies I tell them leave that at default because moving around them is like putting your character on steroids,
Yeah,
and they could choose all their moves and just let it go in the ring.
that makes sense. Makes sense. I'm very curious to ask because you. It sounds like WWE. Sounds like comics, anime. They played a very important role for you in your childhood and your upbringing. And I think sometimes listeners can hear this and think, oh, that's childish. Those are nonsense. That's not real. But just even in this few minutes of conversation, I could tell there's a deeper underlying maybe problem that you had in your upbringing that seems like anime, WWE, and comics might have filled, what would that be for you? Like what pulled you, and what how did you find this to be a safe haven for you in your upbringing?
With me, I like I stated earlier, wrestling was what brought my father and I together growing up. We didn't get along too well. I was the oldest of three kids, and uh, my father and I, like I said, we just didn't bang together. He got him and my younger two brothers, especially my youngest brother. That was his. That was, he loved them. Not saying that he didn't love me, but it was just something about the younger two, and that was the one thing that brought us together in that one. And so I always had a sense of not. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself growing up, and pro wrestling gave me that relationship with my father, and seeing other wrestlers that looked like me every now and then. There weren't a whole lot of. I mean, there was Junkyard Dog, and when I looked him up, somewhere like, yo, he was a bad Joker, or Coco Beware, where in real life wrestlers were like, you didn't mess with him because he was really one of the toughest people out there. Or Savannah Jack in the old UWF days, and I mean, I was like, okay. And then when I got into comic books, there were a lot of lessons in comic books that taught me about self-esteem,
Mm,
being proud of who you are in your own skin. I mean, a lot of people, they probably realize it now but didn't then. A lot of X-Men comics, a lot of comics that Stan Lee wrote, they were like woke comics.
mm,
The lessons they talked about, the racism in the world and how you can overcome, and if you come together and fight as one unit, we can make a powerful blow in our society. And I took a lot of those lessons, especially in the X-Men comic books, because I liked Hank McCoy, because he was always a
mhm,
philosopher. Although he was this big beast, but he was a philosopher, as well as Colossus. And I saw that in me because, oh, like I said, I was always one of the big people. And like these big muscular men quoting poetry and everything, and they can hit hard, but their hearts are soft. Not
mhm.
soft, but they have a kind and gentle spirit, and I saw myself in that. So with that, I just saw that, and then Dragon Ball Z came, and I just wanted to try to see if I could scream, yell, go Super Saiyan. Now,
Everyone's tried
let's
it,
not
man.
pretend that some of
Everyone's
us
tried
didn't
it.
try that growing
Every
up.
dude,
You damn
everyone
straight.
has tried to do this just to see
Oh,
if something
the
sticks out.
Kamehameha.
Yeah, it's someone. Everyone's tried it. Like my 4-year-old, I'm teaching her how to say Kamehameha right now. It's funny. It's cute how she says it, but I'm like, she got to know. That's got to be one of the things that before she passes away, she knows what Kamehameha is. It's that significant. But something you said that I thought was really fascinating is you talked about it made you feel comfortable in your own skin. You talked about comfortability. That and you pointed to X-Men. I think X-Men is actually a great one because on one side you have Professor X, right? His philosophy, his way that he sees the world. On the other side, you have Magneto, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he has his own philosophy. And then you have the world in the middle where it's like, are mutants, should they be accepted or should they not be accepted? I think it's I think the fact that you're able to pull out that hey, there's some lessons in these books that are actually culturally relevant to our society. I just wonder how many people, because they've seen this thing as being like a childish thing, how many
Mm-hmm.
people have actually missed out on some lessons that But anyways, keep going.
Yeah, I think with that, a lot of people growing up did miss that until they saw X-Men '97 this
Mm,
past year on Disney
oh yeah,
Plus. It brought a lot of those old things back, the old animation style and there. I mean, and how some of the moments just ripped your heart out. I mean,
hmm,
I learned like a big baby.
yeah.
And I'm glad my niece wasn't here to see me cry over this dude. When Gambit
Oh
died,
come on, that was hard.
that
Yeah,
whole episode from when Rogue says she's gonna stay with Magneto
yeah.
and breaking his heart until Gambit riding through and the Sentinels getting him. I'm like, yo,
Hmm,
that hurt. And that's why I say a lot of comics these days are now putting that realism in
hmm,
to make people, and a lot of people don't see, they just see it as entertainment value. they don't see they don't see the lessons. Like with Hulk, all Hulk wants is to be left alone.
Mm,
He just wants to be left alone. He wants to be a hermit, and he keeps getting messed with. That's why he's always angry. Peter Parker always having to live with that life decision of letting that one criminal get away, and it killed his Uncle Ben, and he's still fighting those demons over that. And it's
mm,
showing that though these people are super powered, super intelligent, a regular mistake or a regular thing happened to them, and they show that it can happen to them, it can happen to us. We're but a half step away from being in someone else's shoes at any time. And I believe that's what makes us all super, and that's why I like Marvel comics now. I love DC as well. I love Shazam. Shazam's probably one of my favorite characters. I just want to yell out Shazam and see if I get turned into Black Adam or something. Or at one time, there in my other room, I have the Green Lantern, the yellow, blue, black, white. I had all this whole set of rings from those wars. So I'm like, I'm a comic book nerd. I'm a blurred. I'm blurred. But the lessons taught in these things, and I do believe people overlook it. People overlook and miss the entire message because
Well,
they look.
if you look at the history of comic books, right? The whole purpose of them were our world is chaotic.
Mhm.
So let's create these figures, right? Captain America, right? It's like this whole, I mean, that's patriotic, right? It gives people hope in times of hardship. And a lot of these characters, I mean, when they were originally written, they were a reflection of what's actually happening in today's culture for them. And
Mhm.
so if you just saw it as something silly, you missed out. But for a lot of people, comic book were more of a hope for that there might be a better future, right? When you look at who the why am I Hydra, who Hydra represents, who Captain America
Right.
represents, right? And you look at um, the Nazis, and you look at the other side is that's what they're showing you something like that. And during those time of day, Superman, what does he represent, right? Batman, what are these characters representing? It's always
Mhm.
something bigger. But so for you, I know you also, I think you said something around like you have you written comics or
Yeah,
was it okay?
I did my own comics at one time. I started out in high school trying to write my own comics. Um, when Milestone, not Milestone, yeah, it was Milestone, the imprint that came through DC with the black comics. You know, that line, that imprint that came out with Static and the Blood Syndicate and all them. My English teacher, she got me. She went away to New York for. She went to see some plays and whatnot, and I know she's probably. I don't. She's probably in her early 80s now, Miss Johnson, but she saw these comic books in New York and brought it down for me to look at and read. And she was like, "You got a creative mind, and these are black comic books written and drawn by black people.
Mm,
You should try this." And I wrote down some stories. She like, "This is good," and it actually led to an off meeting with Dwayne McDuffie. I was in high school. He was like, "This is good, but you're a bit young to come to New York while you're a sophomore in high school to try to write comic books." But he encouraged me to keep going. And I forgot the question. I just start see. I'm. It's like a squirrel for me. I'm a dog. You see squirrel, my mind goes somewhere else. I forgot the question.
no,
But
I think you're answering it. You're doing it. Keep going.
okay, but I just, yeah, I was writing comic books. I wrote my own. The first ones I did was like an offshoot. It's supposed to be a combination of the Avengers, Iron Man, and X Men. I called them Earth Zoners. I don't know where that name came from, but as soon as I saw Dragon Ball Z and I got all into Dragon Ball Z, I'm like, I could change these characters it changed it to something else, not sayings or anything, but I came up with some ideas. And at first, when I was writing them up, and I came up with the whole saga, I came up with everything. And then I moved to New York in 2002, or Super Bowl Sunday 2002. And people were like, "You gonna move on Super Bowl Sunday?" I already had in my mind that the New England Patriots was going to lose that day. They were going against the St. Louis Rams. I was like, Marshall Falk and them, they got this. So I moved. I was wrong. Um, and that's where I came, and I decided, what with each level I had these people power up. I changed it from Earth Zoners to 12 rings of the Chinese zodiac. And it was like, I came up with powers for each Chinese zodiac, each person that have a ring, and the ring gave them their powers. And there was Supreme Knight who wanted all 12 rings. It would be like 10 rings and two earrings.
Mm.
And where I'm like, what if I do for each power up one person can do, they change the color of their hair? And I joked that Akira Toriyama got that idea from me with going Super Saiyan Blue and Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Rose. I said, he stole my ideas. But
Hey, they say the best artists are greatest thieves.
yeah. So but I just kept going through, and I met a comic book writer, a very accomplished one named Brandon Easton.
Mm.
And he done some. He was teaching in New York at the time. He was a teacher in English in New York, and he really took me under his wing about the proper way to write a comic book script, networking, and all this other stuff. He's in California right now. He's wrote he wrote TV shows, Agent Carter, Thundercats, a few others. He done some
He
Transformer
also
comic
did,
books.
yeah, Avengers Assemble. I'm looking at some of the stuff right
Yes,
now. These
he
are
done a whole.
for listeners, as you guys listening to this, check out these names. Dwayne McDuffie. These are some monumental figures. I'm looking it up right now. They did a lot of
Hmm.
impacts. And then Brandon Easton. If you get a chance, Google them real quick because I think in this conversation we're having, you're dropping names. I'm a huge lover of comics. I don't know some of these authors. So when you said Dwayne McDuffie, I was like, hold up. I looked them up and I'm like, these are not small people. These are giants in the comic world.
These are
So
the
I just want
thing.
to emphasize that as you expand on it.
And if you look up, like, if you are a fan of Justice League Unlimited,
Yep.
he was like, I don't want to say executive producer. He was a writer. He put that together. And some of the best episodes of JLU was done by Dwayne McDuffie. Now again, he's no longer with us.
Yep.
He was a, but he was the main force behind that milestone line that came through DC. It's that, and I believe a lot of people, especially if you're in the comic books, you know the name Static or Static
Yep.
Shock.
Yep.
That was one of his creations.
It's a CW11, I believe, is what I used to
Yep,
watch. Man.
yep. And I mean, he done a whole lot. That he done what people call the Black Superman icon. And that was a very good comic book because it taught history. It showed an alien that came from outer space with superpowers, but he came in during the slavery days, and he worked his way through slavery and everything. And it's a very good book, very good title. And now we have other black creators that's coming out these days. I don't know his real name, but on TikTok he goes by King Lion. And people call him the angry guy. I don't call him angry. I call him very passionate about defending comics and debating comics and other stuff. But there's a whole bunch of new creators coming out that I've just, part of me is like, man, I wish I kept writing. I mean, what burned me one time is I put up $1,200 up for a comic book artist to do character designs, and he ran off. And that was like right after I got married, and my wife, I love my wife to death for this. She didn't hold it over my head because some people are like, "Yo, you lost money. You lost our money on that." So I was like, after that, I was like, yep, nah. So that's when I was working on my undergraduate at the University District of Columbia, and I was starting to work at ESPN
Hmm.
in DC, which was a lot of fun.
How did you? What made you transition that direction specifically? I feel like that's
Uh,
quite a leap over to ESPN.
over the, I got over there because a friend of mine I was working, I was going through the get my degree, and I was 30 years old at this time. I was getting my degree, and one of the guys that went to the church my mother was the pastor, my mother-in-law, were rather, I call her ma, she was a pastor at, he was like one of the big heads at this one studio in Washington D.C. that does a lot of TV stuff. They work with Discovery, um, what else, ESPN, and other things. And he asked me if I wanted to do like a paid internship. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, what I'll be doing? He said, you'll be working with ESPN. I said, wait a minute, it's gonna be a paid internship and I get to work with ESPN? I was like, oh, I'd be a fool not to do this.
What year would this have been?
Say again.
What year was this? What year would
This
this have been?
was 2007.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I worked on Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption. It was
Get
being run
out.
out of, yeah,
Wilbon?
with Will
Oh,
Bond.
oh
Oh,
my goodness.
he is without a doubt one of the nicest guys I've ever met in TV. He's really one of the nicest guys. He was all about helping people. He
Hmm.
said if he's like if I see you trying to help yourself and if I can help you, I'm going to help you. I mean, he had me sit in meetings with him plenty of times. I got to meet like Charles Barkley,
Oh man.
and
Icon right there.
he's hilarious. Oh my goodness, he's hilarious.
Well, you know
Um,
you're hilarious when people would rather watch TNT than the actual basketball game. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
who'd
would
ever
rather
said
watch
they
the
would
pre.
rather? Oh, dude, it's
It's
unheard of,
it's their brotherhood, the camaraderie they have,
dude.
and I love it. I mean, like I said, I mean, Wilbon was great. Tony Vialli was super fun.
Hmm.
He took me and my wife out a couple of times, because we just got married. We got married in '05 and '07. He's like, hey, let me take you to a couple of places around DC. I'm like, okay, cool. He was mad cool about that. Kornheiser, he was cool sometimes. I think he liked me because I posed to be his security sometimes.
It helps when
I
you
was his
sit smart.
security sometimes, but he was cool. But it was just awesome, and I got to work with them for like 3 years before they moved to another TV studio. And the one I was at, they closed down, and the other studio didn't bring me on with them, which I was okay because my wife, she was finishing up law school, and she was taking the bar for New Jersey and passed it up in New Jersey, and we moved from DC back up here to New Jersey area. It
Makes
was
sense.
Yeah, and then I got into seminary. Don't know why I did that.
Well, walk us through that. What?
Nah, um, yeah, I've been running from this preaching thing for years,
Hmm.
and I just not that I
Like kind of
didn't
like a
like.
Jonah moment runaway, or what kind
Yeah,
of?
like a Jonah moment. Many people will say that growing up in South Carolina, they were like, "Yo, you should be a preacher. You're called to be a preacher." I'm like, "Nah, not me." I actually said one time, I said, "I'm in the music ministry. I played saxophone as well.
Hmm.
I played saxophone. I could sing a little bit. So I'm in the music ministry." This one lady looked at me dead in my eyes and said, "Okay, Jonah, run away." But my wife and I, we went to this one church, this AME church in Newark, and has happened to be pastored by one of our friends that we met when we lived in Pennsylvania. And we were talking. He said, "Yo, so when you gonna stop running, and start being a minister?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to do that." He like, "Nah, you could do this." I'm like, "All right." And I was like, "Okay, let's do this. What I gotta do?" He like, "Well, to be an itinerant elder in the AME church, you need to go get a master's." And I said, "Gotcha." I already had a master's. I had a master of sport management. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. They're like, no, you need an MDiv. I'm like, I need to go back to school. And I told her, I said, I don't like school.
Mm,
So, so
Yes, never have.
I it was, I went back. I went to Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, started in 2013, and I had obstacles like crazy. I had
mm,
health problems with my feet, knee about to get amputated, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
mm.
So I went through that for 3 years, got my master's. I had surgery in 2016, so I'm sitting there like, okay, I'm done with school. And then another one of our friends hit me up and said, congratulations. I thought he was congratulating me on getting my degree, getting my master's. I'm like,
Is
oh,
he getting your
thank you, man.
doctorate? Is that tell you
Yeah,
to get your doctorate?
yes, yes.
Yup.
He
Yup.
be like, I'm like, thank you. He like, no, you start classes soon. I'm like, oh no, the devil is a lie. I just finished these classes. He like, no, you going for your doctorate. I'm like, oh, I didn't apply for this.
Mm,
And I said, and who says I would get in? And he said, and he just happened to be the head of admissions. He like, if I say you're in, that means you're in. And I'm like, come on, man. That means I gotta go back to this place. I'm like, dang.
yeah.
So reluctantly, not tell everybody, I reluctantly went back and got this D-Min. And I done, and he was like, here's what you do. You focus your doctorate on what you like in ministry, even if you have to make something up. And I'm like, oh. So I made it a focus on getting black men back in church through sports. Because at the church where I was going at, there were like 5 other churches in the area. And on Sundays, the basketball park will always be full.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a couple of Sundays off when my pastor let me get off, not go to church and go and out and just talk with the guys out there and see why they're not going to church. And the answers they gave me, I was like, I see that. One guy was like, they don't want me there. And I said, why? They're like, because I don't have a suit.
Mm.
I don't talk like them.
So
Another guy says,
just for timeline purpose, would this been within the last 10 years, right? This type
yeah,
of timeline. Yeah. So
yeah.
this is pretty recent. We're not talking about the '90s or anything. It's
Mm-mm.
when was okay.
This was like, let's see, I got my final order. I got
2016.
that, yeah, after 16,
Yeah.
around 18, 18, 19.
So you're looking
Yeah,
at
I got,
peak
yeah,
of.
before 18 because I got my doctorate in 18. I finished
I
my
feel like
studies
the
in
racial
2018.
tension really, like when it comes to race, I felt like it heightened 2016,
Yeah,
2017, 2018. Anyways, keep going.
because of who we had going in office and whatnot.
Hmm.
But they were like, they don't want us. And and I said, now think about it, a lot of churches are ran by ladies. Women are in the church, the majority of these churches. And some guys are like, I don't have a three-piece suit. So the pastor don't want us in because they think we're gonna do something to the women. And I'm like, well, I'm asking you to come, and I don't care. And that's my motive today. I'm a pastor of a small church in Harlem, although we're doing mostly on Zoom because the church is falling apart, literally. But my thing has always been, come in how you are. You don't need a three-piece suit. Shoot, I go in with a hoodie. I do. I go in. A few weeks back, I put on a hoodie that said "Half Hood, Half Holy." That means that means pray with me. Don't play with me. Hey, a lot of us
Y'all need to
forget.
get that shirt. That's awesome. That's awesome.
A lot of us forget that we ain't being saved all our lives. We all had
Anyways,
come. We are all falling short.
so let me ask you a question on that because I feel like I, I feel like this has been happening for a long time. I remember when I was growing up. I mean, I'm only 31, so it's not like I'm an old guy or something. But um, dress codes was a thing with the church. I remember. I mean, so I was adopted. My mom, I was adopted by a white woman. Incredible, incredible woman. It's funny because her name is Karen, right? So it's like you have the whole just what's going on, right? And she's 80 years old. Karen. I mean, she adopted six of us. Of the six that she adopted, all of us are minorities. One was half white, half Hawaiian, right? It's that's kind of who she decided to.
Yeah.
But when we used to go to church, it's funny because my mom, Catholic church, she would wear Alabama jersey to church. I'm talking about Catholic church. I've seen her like when it's like because she loves Alabama, and so it's like she will wear her team jersey to church. But us, because we were black, she made us dress up. And I was like, why is this? And she's like, she would tell us every time. She's like, hey, this is. She's like, when it comes to your culture, your people, they dress nice for church. So when you move out of my house, you can dress however you want, but as long as you're in my house. So whenever we went to church, she got to dress up in the most comfortable shirt, right? But for her, she was like, I don't know. I'm sure there was a lot of intention put into it, but she made us dress up when we went to church because that's how I'm sure that's the way that she's seen it. And when you look at a lot of black churches, I mean, people are typically in three-piece suit, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
fashion is there. What do you think has happened in what happened with you? That have you always been that way, where it's like I never cared what outfits that people wore, or is that something that as you started to walk further and further with God, that you realized that we put too much emphasis in this? What's your thought around that?
I do believe that we do put way too much emphasis on what people look like and wear when it comes to coming to church. And that's why a lot of people don't come to church. How can the church say they welcome everybody? And let's say a homeless person wants to come in for prayer or come in just to get out of the elements for a few moments. And because they may smell a little different, they may have holy pants or holes in their shoes, they get rejected and told not to come in. How can we say we're helping that person? When I was started, when I got to my second church, and I've only been pastoring for 5 years. I got to my second church in the city I live in now, in Patterson, Bethel, Patterson. They used to have this ministry that where they open the church on Sunday mornings at 6 o'clock in the morning for the people that's coming off their Saturday night um, escapades, so to speak. And they could be homeless or whatnot. And they would give them a place to stay warm, get sobered up, get some coffee, eat some Danish. And some of these were homeless people. A lot of these were homeless people. And seven of these people came to Christ. They came to the church. They came regularly. And my thing is, when we say God wants us all as we are, He means that. Um, and I do believe that back in the day, churches put way too much emphasis on what you wear, what you look like. Oh, your beard got to be kept clean. You got to have a certain haircut. For men, you got to have a suit. If you ain't got a three-piece suit, at least a two-piece with a shirt and tie. Um, Ladies, make sure your skirts cover your knees and all this other stuff. I'm like, come on. God ain't looking at all that. God is looking at who we are. And and another thing that I wish a lot of churches would get away from, especially people training for ministry, is the thought that anyone training to be a minister wants to be a pastor. That's not true. I be honest with you, I didn't want to be a pastor. I just wanted to help change the world and make the world a better place. And to me, by that is trying to have a sports ministry. I love sports. I love sports. I love video games. I love comic books. I I tell this one, then we go on if we won't. I went to a not comic book, video game tournament. A fighting game tournament. And I love fighting games. I'm horrible at them, but I love them. There were Street Fighter tournaments,
Oh, wow.
Injustice, Dragon Ball Zero, and Dragon Ball Fighters rather, and all these other games. So they were like these big tournaments, and what was going on? And I went in one Sunday. It was a 2 day tournament. I went that Saturday, and people noticed me because again, 6'5". At the time, I was 310 pounds, big guy. And I went. the next day, which was the first Sunday of the month, which usually means communion at the church I was at. So I had on my clerical outfit. I had my collar on and my black on. So I didn't change after service. I just went straight to the tournament. And the tournament organizer came up to me. He was like, "You're really here with that on?" He thought at first he thought I was cosplaying. But he like, "Wait a minute, you're really a preacher?" I'm like, "Yeah." He like, "You don't think we're heathens?" I'm like, "Why?" Yeah, we're playing video games on a Sunday. I'm like, "Bruh, I play video games on a Sunday. I I'm like, I do all this. I read comics on Sunday. I do all this on Sunday." And I'm like, and I told him, I said, "Do you pray?" He like, "Yeah, I pray every day." Okay, we gotta get out of that mentality that you need to, that always everyone's saying don't work or do anything on Sunday. Although that's one of the commandments, supposedly, not supposedly, but in the Bible, saying work, you rest on the seventh day. But who's to say what the seventh day is for somebody
Mm.
to where they rest? Yes, we all need to rest. We all need to take some time to sit down, rest your brain, do what you like to do that you like to have for fun. If it's playing video games, do that. If it's like watching YouTube videos, do that. If you like streaming, do that. I mean, you got to do what's good for your mental health. And as people of color, we don't do enough mental health um, things to keep our minds clear, especially men. We're horrible at it. Let's be real. We're bad at it. We'll say we all right, and next thing you know, we having a heart attack because it's
Mm.
not all right.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was gonna say, so when it comes to, because last week we talked a little bit about church as well, just kind of the importance of a Sunday gathering versus not, and then it's coming back around, but just slightly different. I sometimes wonder why it is that some of these things are like when I talk to people, they'll say it doesn't matter what you dress, doesn't matter what, like we'll say this, and whenever we're having conversation, people say this. Rarely have I met, unless they're like pretty highly reformed, right? People typically would say, "Yeah, I agree with that," but then when you kind of see it unfold, it seems like that's not the case. Like what people say in person versus the way that they actually go and actualize it seems different. You being a preacher that you are, why do you think it is hard for people to? Why do you think pastors have a sense of culture that makes people believe? Again, I'm not saying that they intentionally are doing it,
mhm.
but there is a culture that is present that the dress code seems to be important. And if they don't tell you it's not, if they say it's not important, the way you're treated can make people feel like, but you're treating me differently. But you're
Mhm.
saying it doesn't matter, but it is. Why do you think that is?
Some people have that whole notion of Sunday's best. You leave your best for God. That's what, everybody thinking, you put your best clothes on to present yourself faultless before God, or you present yourself as the top prize. And that goes to what your adopted mother was saying about you dress up for church.
Hmm.
People of black culture, because, and I'm just guesstimating here, that the culture then for black people to dress up was because through the years and years of slavery, we had to look our best when we would get taken to the slave markets. And they would be like, "Don't no one want the raggedy looking thing." So you dress your best at all times. And even when they went to church, when they were allowed to go to church, they were told you got to look your best because you never know if someone wants to buy you then, and they could get a good price if you look your best. And so that's where that culture come in, that thought mindset come in, that you got to look your best at all times. You could look your and this is my thought, and I have said it many times, and I've actually demonstrated. You can look your best and be tore down on the inside.
Hmm.
You can look like you got $1 million, and be ready to jump off a bridge as soon as you get outside, or
Mm,
jump in front of a car, or do whatever. It's all to me, it's all about the inside and how we treat somebody. So my old pastor would say, God loves you and so do I, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. And I
mm,
started saying that saying. I started saying that to people. And then I also say, um, Christ is in you. You are enough. No matter what anybody says, no matter what God you believe in, you could be Muslim, you could be atheist, agnostic, Jewish, Buddhist, whatever. God is in you. You are enough. So don't let anyone ever say you are not enough. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people in churches today that will use the Bible and God to try to strike down and knock people down. Your hair too long. You got locks. You dirty.
mm,
You work 7 days a week. You're a heathen. You drink a little bit. You're an alcoholic. I mean, you got people that will say these things. People be like, "Oh, okay." Let's say someone probably like, Kenyon, you smoke cigars. You're not good. I don't care about that. I mean, look, the people that Jesus walked with were sinners. Peter had an attitude. He will cuss you. He will hug you one moment and cuss you out the next one, and cut your ear off while doing it.
yep, yep,
And that's what we're a hodgepodge of people. That's what Jesus had. Jesus had a hodgepodge of people. And once we realize that it's about what we have on the inside, we'll be a better group of people. And I'm not talking about just black people. I'm talking about as a community, as a world. Right now, we got one group of people trying to make a racial divide, and it's kind of working in a way on his behalf. But we need to come together and realize, yo, we're all in this together.
mm,
We're loved. We all bleed red.
yeah, yeah. No,
That's what I liked about Dono, who y'all had last. Donovan, that truly my brother from another mother. We met playing a wrestling game, an online wrestling game, and
Okay.
we yeah, that was actually called the wrestling game. And we met and we was chatting it up and everything. And then one day I was living in DC with my wife, and we were living with Ma, and he came out with his ex, and that was together at the time, and with the baby, and we met. And me and Donna, we've been ever since.
yep.
And that's my brother from another mother, right there. It's
It's
crazy what we,
incredible.
it's crazy what we all bond over.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
smallest, craziest things we bond over.
I've noticed though that there's something about the way that I mean, obviously the way men bond and the way women bond are different, but
Much different.
we were talking about this last week, and it's like, it, I mean, you say WWE, like if you were you could put a random group of 100 guys in a room, right? And it's like, as soon as I say anime, anybody that likes anime, we have just our I mean, we're already at a depth that is unheard of, right? Say
Hmm.
WWE, there's a level of depth that's unheard of. There's a sense of trust that develops out of these. But I'm curious to know. It sounds like when you spoke earlier, you were talking about even when you talked about your father, and you were saying that like, hey, we had. It sounds like you guys had a okay relationship
Yeah.
in the sense of that upbringing, right? And there's also a sense of sounds like some sort of healing that's happened with you in the sense of like being able to look at your younger siblings and recognizing that because sometimes people would say with what you're saying like, oh wow, your father had favorites, and like for you it's like it sounds like now you're saying he just got along better with them than he was able to get with you.
Hmm.
So typically when this stuff like this happens, people bond. Like I said, anime is a good one. I think comics just in general. I think things like WWE extra sources. Were there people specifically for you that kind of played that role that maybe you were looking in your father that maybe you weren't able to get with him, but were there some figures that kind of helped you on the journey that you were in, or was it just that you felt isolated pretty much?
For the most part, I felt isolated. Um, I was also a mama's boy as well. I would say that I am a mama's boy, but but I didn't have anyone as far as a male figure, especially around we were at, and 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 my father was there. My parents were married up to the day my mom died in 2009. Um, and so I can never say that. You hear people like, "Oh, my father was never there. He ran out." No, I can't say that. He was there. I would say he provided for us. I learned a lot from watching what he did and didn't do. And but I had my uncle Johnny, his brother, his youngest brother. He would come around and he helped me get into comic books a little bit. He would always bring over Green Lantern comic books, especially when John Stewart, the early John Stewart comic books. So that's why my first interaction with a black superhero. I'm like, ooh, John Stewart. And then, and of course, the Black Panther, but it was him. And my father, and I think it was also because in those days as well, growing up, his father or my grandfather made my father marry my mom because she got pregnant before they got married, and my grandfather was like, you're gonna be responsible. And at the time, I could say he didn't want to get married. He was 21 years old when he got married. I mean, I was 21. I had my first marriage, but he got married at 21, and in that sense, I always felt that he resented me for being the fastest swimmer, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. And um, but like I said, after everything, I mean, we bonded more after I moved out and got married the second time. We bonded a little more, and right before he died in 2023 on the 23rd of September. And we joke about that because my father was a big fan of the Temptations. And there was a song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. And the song, it was the 3rd of September, is the day I always remember. And my father died on the 23rd of September. And my brother called and told me that he died. I'm like, I looked at the calendar. I'm like, well, he's crying and everything. My youngest brother, he's crying his eyes out, and I'm laughing. And he's like, "Why are you laughing? Daddy's died. Daddy's dead." And I'm like, "You do know that today's September 23rd?" And he stopped crying and he started laughing
Mm.
because of the temptation thing. And but I just remember that the week before he died, my father and I we were talking on the phone, and the last conversation we had was about excellence. And we're talking about Deion Sanders, how
Oh.
he demanded excellence out of his boys, out of the Colorado football team, and how everybody hate on him because he's Deion. And he was like, you said something in one of your sermons that everyone should take hold of. I'm like, you listen to me? And he was like, yeah. I said, what I say? He said, let your haters make you famous. Your haters are out there, whether in your family or nobody you know. But let those haters make you famous. Use their energy to propel you forward to do whatever it is you want to do. Don't let nothing hold you back. And he was like, that's why I'm happy. I'm proud of you. You didn't let our relationship growing up hold you back. So it was a good conversation. I didn't know that was gonna be my last conversation with him because I was planning on going down in November of that year to see him, to surprise him. And he surprised us. And I said at his funeral, I said, you would be the one to surprise everybody by dying on us.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
and that's something I got from my father is trying to be humorous out of situations because we got enough sadness in the world today and we just try to make jokes out of everything. I think that's a thing that people of color do a lot of at times. We take the bad situations and make it joyous or make laugh about it.
Yeah, yeah. I remember. I think I told this to Kenny, but when I was in Oregon back in 20, it was 2016, 2017. I decided to, because I observed something really quickly, which was I noticed that I have rarely ever met an African American that has never watched anime. This is gonna get back to your comedy thing, right? It's like I've never, and I remember I went like, I mean, even till this day, I do it once in a while. It's like I think I've maybe met five black people in the last what 9 years that didn't grow up watching anime. There's something about anime, right? Because our anime would probably be Boondocks, right? I mean, the Boondocks was where, I mean, that's as anime of a show. Like then you have Afro Samurai, right, with Samuel
Yeah,
Jackson. Like that was, you want to talk about next level anime, right? That took it to a whole new place as well.
yeah.
Uh, so I was listening to one of my favorite speakers. Not I was reading a book, sorry, of one of my favorite speakers, um, Thomas Sowell, and he talks about this idea of not disparity, inequality. He talks about inequality, and he talks about how sometimes when it comes to inequality, we don't realize that it's inevitable. Like it's just that we're in, right. So he talks about this side of a mountain. Like one side of the mountain may get all the rain, while the other side is can't get any of the rain, right? And it's
Hmm.
like it's not necessarily. It's just there's inequality. And he talks about you look at sports and you can see that um, right when it comes to basketball, it's highly dominated by African Americans, right?
Hmm.
When you look at baseball, the Dominican pretty much dominate when it comes to the baseball world, right? And then you can look in football, right? And you look at certain positions dominated by white people, right? And he's like, it's not in a sense of it is inequality, but rather it's just certain cultures, certain backgrounds have certain advantages in certain things. Um, what has your upbringing been like when it comes to race? I know you've talked about the importance of having black figures in certain industries. At what age did that start to become important to you, and how has that evolved for you?
Let's see. Growing up in South Carolina, I've always seen like white people in like positions of power, um, principals of schools, white men. Um, Very few black teachers. Growing up, I would see like during sports, I see black running backs, black basketball players. Didn't see many black quarterbacks. Warren Moon was it growing up for me. I knew there was a month, and then later on Randall Cunningham. And after a while, I want to say after I met Miss Johnson in 10th grade, my English teacher at Chapman High School, she made it. She like you got to do what you can to blaze a path for not just yourself, but for your people. And this was a white woman. She was like, and at that point, I started realizing, like, oh, wow, there ain't many of us in this position. Like TV anchors on news. And like I say, in South Carolina, you weren't seeing much of anything.
Mm,
During Black History in South Carolina, in public schools in South Carolina, the extent of it was Malcolm X was bad because of the whole by any means necessary. People didn't want to hear about that. Martin Luther King was good because he was peaceful. He knew what to do. He knew how to, in the words of Samuel L. Jackson during the Super Bowl, he knew how to play the game.
mm, yeah.
And then it wasn't really until my freshman year in high school I've learned about Rosa Parks, Medgar Evers, Fannie Lou Hamer, who said that line that I still use today. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And at that point, I started learning more about my own culture. And I don't blame my parents for it because they grew up during segregated time. My mom, um, She was the last class of Bethune Cookman High School before they closed and they integrated everything. My father, he went to high school for a couple of years. Yeah, about 2 years after during integration. So they didn't learn a lot. They did, but they didn't, if that makes sense. And my parents was always of the mindset of you gotta work.
Mm.
And so they didn't take a lot of time to pour into the culture thing into us. And that goes back to what you asked about who did I look up to. I didn't have a lot of people to look up to. I had my white teachers that
Mm.
poured into me. Um, Mr. McMillan, the principal at Chapman High at the time, he took a strong liking to me and a whole bunch of other students that looked like me, looked like us. And except for our guidance counselor. Our guidance counselor, he actually told me that I would make it into college. And
The
that all I
irony
should
that a guidance counselor is the one that tells you,
where to
like,
go,
like
what you
it
can
makes you
do.
wonder
That's
what is
that's
this
some primo
purpose of your role?
guidance right there.
Yeah. Told me that I wouldn't make it into college. He like,
Yeah,
just
Why?
get ready to work in the mill. And
Why?
you know what?
Why do you
hmm
say that?
I have no idea. It could be because I did apply. I did start applying to colleges late. I did start applying to colleges late because in my senior year in high school, I just felt that I had no future in anything, and
but
and
isn't the role of a guidance counselor? I'm trying to think of the role of a guidance counselor.
it's
If
supposed
you're a guidance role counselor and you're helping someone that is successful, you're not really doing your job,
right,
right? Because they're already on trajectory. It's like,
right,
you know what I mean? But it's like a guidance counselor. You're working with the people that applied late, the people that are on, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of why your role exists. It's not to help the group that's already going to be heading in the right path. The guidance counselor's role is to guide people that are quote unquote lost in some. So the fact that, you know what I mean? So to hear you say maybe it's because I signed up late. It's like, well, if you signed up on time, his role would be unnecessary
right,
in a sense.
and
Anyways, keep going.
my school then wasn't a very fairly large school to begin with, so I mean it's not like he couldn't. I mean, be like talk to us. I mean, we did have college fairs and whatnot, and I mean, he had access to my SAT scores, which I didn't like school. I didn't like math. Math is what kept me like, mm. I mean,
I
I
feel
was
like
going to
math
drop
was
out.
easy until they started adding letters. Once we started adding letters,
That's
that's when
what
I
it
was like,
was.
"Yo,
They
what are
start
we
adding.
doing here?" Yeah,
So
it's
they
like, "Am
start
I in
adding the
English?"
alphabet. And I'm like, what
I was
the?
like, "Am I in English class or am I in math class?" Like, I was waiting for them to change my grammar and my math
You
class.
man, I'm like, this is a new language you're teaching me. I don't understand none of this. I mean,
No,
I mean, algebra,
I,
maybe, but
Adrian, I
he,
dominated in math class. I dominated when it came to addition, multiplication, division. Like I'm talking about, like I ran through everybody in my school. Right? It was I was doing eighth grade, ninth grade math. Well, I was doing eighth grade math in like fifth grade. It was like I was just running through. And then they got me into algebra, and they started talking about sine and cosine, and they started adding some letters, and I'm just like, yo, that's dude. I'm talking about like I dropped real quick. So till this day, I can do math really quickly in my head. But as soon as you start adding variables, and I'm like, yo, you
mm-hmm,
messing with that. Anyways,
because I'm like, A is not always A then, and that's what I'm like, that's what kept in my brain. I'm like, you mean I got to figure out what this A? Why come A in problem 3 not the same A in problem 10? Come on.
yeah,
So
yeah,
math just threw me off, and my guidance counselor was like, he was like, you're not gonna make it in college. You're not gonna make it to a college. And so, and I don't know how about some other people out here watching this or listening. I'm that type at times. You tell me I can't do something, oh, I'm gonna do everything I can to
mm,
make you wrong. And
facts.
I was a little late and slow. I'm a late bloomer, but I'm like, okay, I got into a junior college. I'm like, mm-hmm. I ain't gonna get into a college. Now, I stopped junior college to help my family out because my mom had a hip replacement and she couldn't go back to work. So family unit, worked, worked in a cotton mill, got married the first time. It didn't work out too well because we were very much too young when we got married. I admit that she done some things. I done some things. Neither one of us were were innocent completely. I know I played my hand in it as well. So we got divorced, and that's when I moved to New York. And when I met my current wife now, we moved to. She was getting her master's in social work, and she started working at Penn State. And after a couple of years there, we moved to DC. That's when I went to school. I'm like, you know what? She got a degree, and she encouraged me. She's like, you're so smart. You need to do something. I'm like, okay, that's why I got my degree. With each degree I got from that point on, I took a picture like this with my degree, sent it to the guidance counselor with the words, I would make it in college. Got my undergraduate, graduated cum laude.
Did he ever respond?
No,
Yeah, that's not much. Yeah.
no.
Can I ask you a
I
question?
think he was. Mhm.
So, regarding these, how that be an hour to hear your speech, at least I get a chance to get a little bit of the chance and put a bit of chill and character. Here's some content. Um, you seem to have, feel like a friend man, and, and you obviously have a background, you're a pastor, you dealt with anything in this world, so you're writing well, and um, so you're a pastor and you're dealing with the church world. And you mentioned something, you know, a little while back, you said that you used to go to the basketball court through, the young man who played basketball, and you asked them why you were in church. And they would say, different things, that you try to rectify and bring them in. Um, there's something that was in your mind, and so I wanted today, I wanted to ask you what you thought. You thoughts are on this. You thoughts even about race, and you thought, I'm really happy to hear that you have close I've parents who were from the generation of segregation used to get facts and critic told your stories here and there. Facing conflict, out and you obviously have had a experience. That's it, Austria. Uh, it's not just in the realm of church, not just in the realm of, every, everyday life, but also in the corporate, also, I guess, um, what, what would you say is the biggest, I would say, what would you say is the biggest, not just the problem, but also the solution for the, I would say, the disenfranchisees or the, um, the difficulty the blacks facing in Africa. And according to, at least based on everything that you, according to you, what would you say is the core of the matter? And if you have any solution, I'd like to hear what you think, please. Especially in lockdown.
Mm. Um, as far as the solution, that's the harder question. That's the very hard question. But it's hard, but it's simple at the same time, if that makes sense. The core problem for many of us, and this, sometimes it's going to be easy to be like, oh, the white man is holding us out down. The white man's scared of us. Sometimes we are our own problem. We get in our own way sometimes. And not only that, and I said this earlier about not working together. And some people like, it's not my idea. I'm not going to work on it. And that's what happened. Look, early in the civil rights movement, there were some people who didn't want to work with others because they didn't like it wasn't their idea. And that's one thing we do have to get out of. We're not all going to have the same ideas. Let's be real. And we all have different personalities. People will see me and they will see me as a gentle giant. And then there's someone like my wife. My wife is 5'2", and she, yeah. I saw your look, Joshua. Uh, but yeah, I'm tall and she is short, and she is the dominant personality. Different personalities, but the thing is, we got to learn to work together, make it mesh together without being like two rams butting heads. And sometimes we don't work together. Again, we don't want to work together. I mean, we do, but we don't. We want to work together if it's by our by how we want it. And we got to get out of that mindset. We have to get out of that mindset that it has to be my way or the highway. There's different ways to get to a common goal. There's different roads to get. What was it say? All roads lead to Rome.
Mm.
And if we weren't learn to work together, we can all get to Rome. My wife got me hooked on this show, this old TV show, Little House on the Prairie. I hated it growing up.
To say
I
old is
hate,
an understatement, my man. That's like
yeah.
one of the first things in film.
But she got me hooked on it, and I was sitting there like, oh, there's a lesson in this. And these are, if for those who don't know, it's a bunch of white people that makes this small town in, I want to say, Wyoming or whatever state it is during the 1800s. They worked together. The town died at one point, and everybody came together. They had no money, but they came together and brought the town back together. That's what we can do. That's what we should do. We should be willing to work together because not everyone has the same level of expertise. Not everyone has a financial background. Not everyone has a background to teach somebody. It's not look. There's some people who cannot put a nail and hammer together without breaking every finger they have. But if we put all these things together, we can build up something phenomenal. Um, like y'all got skills to run a podcast. I wanted to do a podcast, but I don't know the first thing about doing that. I could put together a Twitch stream real quick for a video game, but that's about it. We all have different skill sets. And if we work put them together, we can again build something big. But we sometimes we got to get out of our own way. Our ego, especially young men, stop chasing things that's not gonna be for the betterment of your life, for your family, for your community. There are some women out there that just want to tear you down. And I'm not saying that women are evil or anything like that, but to completely just be like, I'm going to chase women. I'm going to see how many women I can get. This. And let's be real. We know some people that's like, yo, I'm going to see how many women I can get. I mean, I've been on cruises. I love cruising. I love going on cruises. And I've actually heard
You
people,
said you know how to swim, right? You did say that?
no,
What? He says he
I
swims like a
swim
rock.
like a rock. But for some, and it's crazy. I can't swim, but I love going on a cruise. I have no idea why that is. It could be
It's
the
a good thing
all
you're praying, man.
uh, you can be a praying man to get on an airplane these days. You see an airplane landing upside down in Canada. I'm like,
Have
And
you
damn.
like
heard?
flies, man. Yeah.
It's funny how like Spirit airline right now is like blowing up because they're like the only ones that haven't had a problem, even though they're the ones that's known as like the worst airplanes. They're the only one that have
It's
over
crazy.
it right now. Yeah.
They might
Why
get in
should-
a fight. Make sure he doesn't get there alive.
Yeah, right.
Well, you're
You
gonna get
don't
there.
get
Your
there
body's gonna get there.
alive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, again, I see these people. I see men coming on the boat with their homies and everything. Like, yo, I'm gonna get this girl. I'm gonna get back this or this and this. And I'm like, yo, for real? So, young brothers out there, find something that you like doing, that you love doing. Because if you, what's that saying? If you do something that you love, it's not work. And and like for me, I love doing the stream thing. I love streaming in 2K24, soon be 2K25. I love trying to play Uno online. I love trying to play video games, and that's another thing I want to do. I want to do video games and let people, let the world see how bad I am at it,
Mm,
and we can laugh. And but find something constructive. Build up something for your family. Let's be real. Right now, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Let's be real. 100 years ago, would any of our ancestors be thinking we'll be talking
I
on
guess
the computer or phone, talking about anything and not having to be out in the field?
that's a good point. That's a
We
good point.
are we are their wildest dreams, and it's up to us to build each other up, and not be crabs in a barrel, pull each other down.
Yeah.
And as a community, we need to do that more of. We need to do more of this instead of this.
Kenny, I'm interested. Do you have a? I know you said you thought about it this morning, so I'm curious to know. I don't want to jump in quite yet. Do you have thoughts to what he's saying, or even like what you were thinking as well?
So, personally, I think that the great people that sing makes sense, right? It's, there's some things, I mean, so the statistics that I was looking at, because I was trying to think about this as a video. I watched two videos. First video was this young man drinks a store. Young black man in a store buying something. And these two other young black men come into the store to have a lot of things for the food and go for his legs. And it looks like they're trying to take his shoes from him, right? And he's getting into a fight and he shoots him off. That's the and and so so I was thinking else, but it was something I just think first I mean, yeah, I just fucking thinking and then
Mm-hmm.
but got a chance to see the video. This was pretty funny, and it's young. He's pretty good YouTuber. I think he's very funny. He makes videos of like what not to do in the hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to do like concepts of like if you're walking at night and someone someone just calls out to you, they don't know your name, they don't call you by your name, just keep walking. Don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But he did the specific one where, it's like two young black men looking towards him. He pauses the video as he does, and he says something like, um, if they're screaming, saying like this, the rap to your favorite song, it's nothing. They're just having a good time. And it's funny. It's like, real life. But at the same time, it's like, and, we're having a world where this is supposed to be funny, and it is funny, but it's also indicative of something, right? Because it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be funny if it wasn't trying to take something that's true and to advance it a little bit, right? And so also kind of the statistic thing, it's like I think it's about I pulled it up here just to see, and it's about 80 to 90% of like homicides um where the victims are black. That 80 to 90% of them are committed by black patients, right? And also goes into say that 52% of that is usually friends or family, like friend, they know each other, they're not from the family, so they associate through each other in
Mm-hmm.
one way, shape, or form, right? And um, I don't know just with all this, but we also have the situation where you pull up the statistics on police killings.
Uh,
And
Black
I was
police
thinking,
killings.
how many uh black, how many black people have killed by police in a year, and I was thinking it because I
Okay.
haven't looked at this yet, but I was thinking like, um, if like we can't be claiming at the top of our lives that the police are killing us when we are doing, it's not the same significance. significantly more amount of damage to our own people, to our own selves. Right?
Mhm.
And
So are you ready for the numbers?
here's the numbers, please.
Okay, again, this is just one of the data that I'm pulling up from. So, actually, let's do this. This way we can, in case somebody's watching this, share screen. Um, okay, share. Okay, are you guys seeing this?
Yes, I see it.
So it looks like again, I'm just pulling up first thing I see. The blue is whites, the black obviously Hispanic.
Yeah.
So it looks like this year 248. Um, so it's 385 white people were killed by cops.
Yeah.
248 were black, 177 were Hispanic, 39 other, and then 324 unknown.
All right, so
Which,
it should go. Let's use 2013 because we're looking at here. So 2023 because we're looking at
yep,
here is also pulling from 2023.
okay,
So
so
2023 is
249.
about, okay, right here it says about 9,284 black murders were done by black. Only
Mm-hmm.
that's black on black murder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's astronomical. That's an astronomical. That's like what? That's that's Josh. That's a significant increase, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was thinking, okay, so obviously this is not us. It's one of those great stories of, oh, this is happening, yeah, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, like, okay, we're too busy shouting about the police, which is what 200% that that's actually those cases were like, those cases were unjust, so this is those cases. We have situations where we ourselves, blacks killing blacks, then, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, like, that's, that's, that's incredibly sensitive. And, I think the have kids injured.
No, like I said, I help my wife and I help with my niece. She's 8, and sometimes it's scary letting her go out the door. And it's not because of teachers or anything, because people
Mm-hmm.
and everything you're seeing is true. It's the numbers are staggering. It's scary. Um, and what do we do? And I get that's where you coming at. That's where you getting at. What can we do as a community to try to cut that number down? And why are we killing each other? I remember one time someone got killed over some McDonald's French fries. I'm saying, I'm like, for real, you going to spend the rest of your life in jail over some McDonald's French fries?
Dang.
Oh, that's
I'm not trying to laugh, but there was. But seriously, I mean, we're killing each other over the dumbest things. McDonald's French fries, a pair of sneakers that don't even fit your feet, and or something like this. Oh, they said something about me online. I'm like, for real, for real. And I'm thinking like 50 Cent, King Petty himself. Now he probably gonna be petty with me if he hear any of this. But let's be real. I mean, he said something a while back, and I remember when he was shot up those 9 times, it was due to him saying something. He said something that somebody didn't like, and I believe that as a collective group of people, our skin has gotten thin. Say something about me, I'm gonna make him pay. You do something, I'm gonna make him pay. You don't talk it out. I think it was Friday where Pops was talking to Ice Cube talking about back in the day when we fought with these.
Yeah. Yep.
We don't do that anymore. I mean, a lot of people still do that, but when you're done with these, they go and pull out one of these,
Yeah.
and
Or sometimes it just goes straight to that. Um,
unfortunately,
so
go
let
ahead, Kenny.
If
Wait, I'm sorry.
so you're a pastor now in Clean, correct?
Yes.
Now, if you may, like, how is it? Are there people coming into the church? Why is it being changed? Are you, are you, how is the, how is the temperature? Like, is it, obviously, I know you're with the Catholic Church, tries to be very welcoming. You mentioned the thing about the pretty, you didn't have to dress up for us. We're here to, um, we'll consult your insight. Are you, is, are you even coming into your church? Are their lives changing? How is it? How do you facilitate? Are you still playing basketball? Are you still reaching out to them? What's going on?
Yeah. So this is the second time I've been in Harlem. My first church um was a Greater Bethel, which is literally 2 blocks away from the church I'm at now. The church I'm at now, the building is kind of closed because the building is literally falling apart. So we do most of our services on Zoom. But what I do service projects at least twice a month. I go out by the church and I go talk to people. When I was first there, people were coming in, especially the men were coming in because they were like nobody would listen to them, and they were like, oh, I smell like alcohol, and they're like, and
Hmm.
come on in, I don't care. And that's the lack of compassion people have. But lives being changed. And my thing is, you gotta want to change. I can't force it on you. All I'm going to love you. I mean, come on in. Come on in the room. We can talk it out. We can play it out. Play basketball. Or one guy was teaching me how to play chess. Literally, he was like, he wasn't coming in church, and we got to talking. He like, you play chess? I was like, nah. And he was like, I'm a teacher. Sometimes, if we take the interest of some people,
Hmm.
it would change their lives because at that point they feel welcome, they feel loved, they feel like they're a sense of belonging. A lot of us have been taught we don't belong anywhere, and we and
So
and
let me ask you, because I think Adrian, I think you're getting on something that I've been trying to take us in that direction a little bit. But you talked about the things that we are taught. I again, I'm gonna go back to Thomas Sowell, right? Or maybe some a name that a lot of people would recognize, right? Denzel Washington, right? There's an interview with him where they talk to him about racism, right? And he talks about how there's certain things. He says it's not a race issue. He talks about a culture issue, right? And so he talks about, there's things in the inner cities that white people know, that black people also know, that a black person like me that didn't grow up in the inner city would have no idea what they're
mm,
talking about. You know what I mean? So he talks about it's a cultural problem. It's not a racial problem. And it seems like one of the things, especially I heard this a lot between 2014 to 2021 maybe is when I heard this a lot, where this thing about I've heard people say that, you know, there's that conversation that a black parent has to have with the black child about here is the world that you're going into, right? Question on that: were there something that your parents told you in your upbringing, right? Was there? Did they have that conversation with you? And would you replicate that same thing to if to your niece, or would you say something differently? Like,
growing up, I didn't have my parents didn't have that conversation with me, and I think it was because where we grew up in South Carolina, it was kind of I don't want to say taboo. There's a lot of conversations that growing up early like late 70s, early 80s, we didn't talk about, especially in the Bible Belt. You didn't talk about sex. You
mhm.
didn't talk about race issues, although they were around. Bishop Randolph Jackson, talked to me about race, though. He did. He said, when you grow older, you realize that there are people who are not going to like you solely based on the color of your skin.
How did he tell
And,
you to respond to that? Like, what did he tell you as far as I get that warning that there's gonna be people that don't like you? Was
mhm.
there, what did he tell you to, was there a certain way that he told you to engage the world?
He said, but I think it's to love and love everybody, but every now and then And this is a pastor. He was like, well, my pastor, he like, but there gonna be some times when someone's gonna push you and you're gonna have to throw hands.
Mm,
And he was like, not to be malicious, but to defend yourself. There are people who are gonna come up and try to get you. And he said to me, he's like, because you're the biggest one. And they figure that if they can get rid of the biggest one, they can take over everything else, or everyone else. So at that point, he got me into boxing lessons
mm,
to learn to defend myself, and that's what we do with my niece. My niece, she's 8 years old, and she's the size of a 12-year-old.
mm,
I mean, my brother-in-law, he's 6'3", 270, and he's a fireman. So we we live in New Jersey, but different sets of craziness up here. But we had to teach her as well, not just about be mindful of how people treat you as a black young lady, but as a woman
mhm,
to defend yourself against what black boys would do. Yeah, I remember one time I picked her up from school and we are waiting on our Uber to go, and this one little boy threw a rock at her, and she was like, "Stop!" And he picked it up and threw it again, and I looked at him and I was like, "I don't feel like going to jail today, boy. She told you to stop." And she looked at me, she's like, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "Because we have to defend each other." And I told her, I said, "Don't you ever let anyone treat you like that.
mm,
No one from no other color treat you like that." And at that point, I mean, her father had to talk with her as well about, you're a black woman. And my wife, she tells her all the time, she's like, "Look, just by virtue you being a black woman, you're gonna have to work 3 times as hard to get a half of what others get." And that's the thing I hate having to talk to her about, but we got to prepare our people for what's in the world, what's out there today. And she's very cognizant. She can't stand who's in the office, in the Oval Office. I mean, when the news came out about the election results, she woke up in the middle of the night crying because she saw the results,
mm.
because she was like, "I this woman, she looks like me.
Yeah.
She lost this bad to this man who don't care about me."
Mm,
And it's sad that I'm like, she's 8 years old and she's getting that lesson now. Some people will be like, "Yeah, it's good that she learns it now than later in life on the street." I didn't get that talk from my pastor until I was like 13.
do you think that this is good? Do you think that um, so I'm trying to figure out how to word this. So you have a situation where um, so one of the things that I've heard people say in their upbringing, right? So I'll tell you, this, my mom, again, adopted white woman. We had a
Mm-hmm.
conversation about. She would say like, "Hey, like you may experience this in your experience with when it comes to police." Like she said, "Hey, here's what you may experience," and she spoke to me in a way. I mean, I haven't gotten in trouble with the law or anything like that. Um, but one of the things that she didn't do was she didn't tell me to be afraid of the police. She
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell me to be afraid of people. She never said that. She
Right.
never said to be afraid of something. But I've noticed that a lot of my African American brothers and sisters are both, when their parents had a conversation with them, it seemed like they were taught to be afraid of the police. So my mom almost like communicated the message, which is like, hey, your race may play a role in people's lives and how they view you. She's like, I can't control that. She's like, but she never taught us to be afraid. And it sounds like a lot of my brothers and sisters, they're, again, when I mean a lot, I'm just talking about the ones that I've been encountered. Or you
Mm-hmm.
could even watch a lot of, especially during the BLM movement, right? That's where you got to hear a lot of black individuals talk about their perspective. And it seems like there's a narrative that was passed down to every one of them, which is these are people you need to be afraid of. Have you found that to be true in your dealings, your interactions with, you talk about your church and you're talking about black people and young black men. Have you found that to be true for them as well, or do you think that's not what they're taught either?
I found
As
it
far as
a
to
lot.
be afraid of the police, what I mean by question, I'm just saying, do you think that that is something that they're taught to be afraid of the police?
I have found it to be. I found it both sides. Like in South Carolina, I grew up in a small town, and I wasn't taught to be afraid of them because virtual. I knew all the police officers, and they all knew me. And it was like being at Mayberry. It was a small town. Everybody knew everybody,
Yes.
and so that we at that point I was taught these are our neighbors. These are and some of them were good. Now were there some cops that didn't like me? I'm sure there were.
Yeah.
But and then as I moved up here in New Jersey and when I was in Brooklyn and everything, I was living with this one girl and she was like, half the cops on the force in New York City don't like us. And she was like, this is what she was taught. And and it's because her parents were from Jamaica. They came over. They didn't have the papers correct, so they were always. I don't want to say they were in fear of getting caught and deported back at some point, but that's why a lot of people were like afraid of cops. Because if they get caught by cops, they're gonna get deported. They get caught by cops, they can wind up dead. And I remember after the whole after shoot, I'm trying to remember his name. I started to say Eric Adams. That surely ain't him. He's got off, got off, but it's gonna hit me a little bit. He was choked out. He said, "I can't
Oh
breathe."
no, you're
Oh
talking
yeah,
about George Floyd. George
George
Floyd.
Floyd.
Yes, George Floyd. George
Oh,
Floyd.
gotcha. Yeah,
After
gotcha.
that, I was at that point. I was like, "Yo, he's," and not, that's where I saw me
Hmm.
because he was the big dude. I'm a big dude. He's just trying to make a few dollars. And then some people are like, well, he's doing it illegally. Yeah, so that's half the city. Have to New York selling Lucy's. Yeah, but I saw me and him when he was getting choked out, and I'm like, man, with an illegal chokehold. And at that point, I was starting to fear for my own life. And at that point, I was still living in New Jersey, and I was in seminary. But I'm like, it can happen to me at any moment because Madison is not quite a sundown town, but it's almost like that.
Do you
Um,
still have that fear, or was that just a momentary fear?
at that
And if
time is
so,
a
what pushed? And then also, if so, what pushed you away from that fear? Again.
I do have that fear sometimes in certain areas, in certain towns, especially here in New Jersey. There are some southern Jersey towns that do not want us at all over there, down there. And people would think they were like, oh, it's New Jersey. They don't have racism. They don't have that mentality of yes, Southern Jersey has some areas where people like us are not welcomed at all. And and there's some towns. I mean, we like my wife and I. Will they also depicts on what we do, like on a date or something. Where do we go here to get something to eat? Oh, where we at? Do we want to be caught there? And there, unfortunately, that fear kind of rises up at times over here because I have to think of my family if I'm with them. I don't want to. See, my wife has a mouth. I told you she's the dominant personality. I won't say she has a big mouth, but
She studied
someone's
law,
trying.
right?
Say it again.
I said she studied law, right?
Yeah, she studied law.
Yeah, she got to hold
and
it
she
down.
know and she knows how to say things. So and my thing is I'm gonna spring into protect mode all the time. You look at my wife wrong, oh, it's some furniture moving. I know that's not very holy of me, but I'm like, you're gonna get the right hand of the Lord righteous and the left hand of the Lord. And that's how I'll be. Um and and that's all and my wife
It's a power couple. One of them is ready for physical protection. The other one is ready for legal protection.
mm-hmm.
There
That's
you
never helped.
And, but her thing is, if sometimes we get ready to go somewhere and she be like, "Do not go into this place and act like you ain't got no home training."
Mm,
Because if I feel that we're at a place where someone's gonna act crazy, try to bump in the line or try to do something, because I'm very protective of my wife because I always say she's all I have left. With my parents
mm,
gone, I got two brothers, but this is my wife. I mean, I'm gonna protect her at all costs. So, but I have that fear that someone's trying to test me.
mm.
And I know sometimes the Lord would test us when we say, "Give me patience."
Bro,
You
worst
ask the
prayer.
Lord,
Worst
yeah,
prayer, man.
worst prayer
Worst
ever.
prayer you can
Anyone
pray,
out there,
bro.
do not pray that prayer. Do not pray that prayer, because
Bro,
once
even
you
when
pray that,
you know how like when somebody prays that for you, they're like, "Man, I hope you help him grow patient." You start to open your eyes, you look at him across, like, "Yo, leave me out of this one."
And then it's fighting words.
those are fighting words. Right?
Find yourself.
Don't pray for patience for me, because at that point,
You
everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and you're sitting there. Oh no, but don't. I
you
remember the
find
first
yourself
time
jumping in there, just being like, like that guy's supposed to pray, then you want to jump in and just be like, God, everything he just says, I want to rescind every one of those. Those are not come from me. This is his.
Give yourself a little back, friend.
I.
So let me throw this down and see how you guys respond to this. So on one hand, I don't think that racism is something that anyone who is going about. I think everybody's racist to some degree. And I think that what prejudice happens, it's a way we use generalities to protect ourselves. However, it's not it's not something that should excuse in the sense of how you physically how you treat an individual in justice. You can know that a certain group of people can be a certain type of way, but the percentage with you should be judged by their any character. And it is something. So
Mhm.
I can know specific general information about a group of people or a certain family or a certain country or whatever the hell. But when I deal with the individual, it doesn't assume that the individual has all that baggage.
Hmm.
So, however, there is something I don't know anything else because, you know, we may have situations where certain people don't like black people surrounding them or in the community or in their country or whatever. How when you read statistics like this, 4,284 black people killed by black people. Yeah, it makes sense. I can understand that. If I know that these are numbers, these are their numbers. It doesn't necessarily mean that every single black person out there is acting a damn fool, hurting other people. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
that. However, like I said earlier, I think we should it takes a lot for human being not to think in generalities. So we often think in generalities because it's helpful. It keeps us safe. I am not in any way, shape, or form if we're gonna go to a country that I know is not gonna be particularly um, welcoming to
Mhm.
either Christian um or American or even Nigerian, however. Right. So when I hear these statistics, I say, well, that makes sense. Right. It's not like we're not particularly known for bringing better things to a neighborhood or to a community or to a people. That doesn't mean that that doesn't happen, but it's just that generally speaking, statistically speaking, we're not known for that. And, and I don't know. So this is the part of like, uh, like when I get stuff, police were stopping once since I've been here. I'm in my best behavior. When that happened, I was in my best behavior. Here's why. And I had to be, I knew that I had to be cautious, not because I was a particular criminal, but because I know how he would see me, generally speaking. So of course,
Mhm.
I want to be my best behavior because I want to make this, hey, that's just surely well, okay. You know what I mean? And next thing I know, I'm part of the other statistic. So the way I see it is, I don't know that, I don't know that it's, there obviously there's all kinds of historical and cultural as well as, socioeconomic backgrounds and things that kind of affect and play into the way the black community currently is. However, I think that I can't get away from the fact that we've kind of brought this, we've kind of brought this on ourselves a few things. There was a time when I was reading about I think it was Greenwood, Tulsa, the Tulsa community, all black community existed in
Mm-hmm.
ancient time, and I don't know exactly when, but I would say, uh, I would say early 1900s, but you can please look it up for me, Josh. This is a
Yeah, it
community
looks
of
like it's 1887. Ethan did.
1887 to
Yeah,
1800s, and
yeah.
it was a community of black, uh, black aristocrats,
Mm.
wealthy black, wealthy black young ladies. They had a great doctor. They had, a movie. They had great movie theaters, air conditioning. They had things that other white communities had, or something even had, right? And this thing got blown to smithereens, right? There was this outbreak, this gross, grotesque misunderstanding, and then an opportunity for wickedness and all sorts of either jealousy and vengeance to be enacted on the black community. But that was people that were here's the arguments. They were living in a time when it was harder to be black.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That created a
Mm-hmm.
brilliant community. It was destroyed, unfortunately. But they did it too, but they did it. And it was a time when things were really hard. And now, I think, compared to the late 1800s, it is much easier to be a black man. You mentioned earlier that our ancestors will look at this and say, holy shit,
Yeah,
this
Yeah.
is the dream, right?
yeah.
And now it's almost like it's not even like it is the case is that in a time when you're freer, we have a we've we've created a certain narrative for ourselves that isn't particularly good or helpful. And at the time when it was harder, and the narrative was much more families were together, hardworking, you know, black black created jobs for themselves, created businesses for themselves, and so forth. And I'm wondering, uh, why such a strange dichotomy? Why such a strange pull apart? And why such a string? And why do we find it so? Why do we find it so? You know, difficult and difficult, but almost surprised to see that people don't want to surround the community or want to surround you, and it should be the case. But I think there's an element of it that is understandable. I'd like to hear what you think, Judge Nate. Yes.
I think one of the things is that we don't want to work anymore. Um, some of us just don't want to do anything anymore. We want to lay up and live off somebody, if that makes sense. Um, and it's a sad, unfortunate circumstance that we don't want to put our hands on the plow to do what it took for like our ancestors to have Greenwood, like you said. And you know what? One of the things that kills me with statements that some of us look back and we see what happened back then. Oh, that couldn't be me. That wouldn't be me, and they're not realizing just how hard it was, like you said, to be black then. Because at that point in the late 1800s, not all states had really ratified black men and women being free. Mississippi was the last state to have to put on the books about African Americans being free, which mean in that was done in the 1900s, which means that on the books someone could go there and claim a black person and be a slave. And people today do not realize just how hard. Like you said, it was hard. and they made it work. And but some of us today, we don't want to work. We don't want to do what it takes to bring a community together. We don't want to do what it takes to make our families better. We don't want to do what it takes to encourage, empower, engage. We don't want to do that. And it's sad. It's sad. And then we want to be quick to be like, the man is holding us down. It's a crying shame. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question because my brain went a different
No,
direction.
actually,
Yeah. I think
no, I think it's the same sentiment. What is going
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I think one of the things that uh again, I'm just starting to dabble in my history a little bit and trying to learn more about what it was like back in the day. But I mean, they talk about like even just what life was like for the black people prior to civil rights movement in the sense of like why is it black families are able to stick together prior to civil rights movement stronger than we were able to after the civil rights movement, right? And
Mhm.
you could talk about the war on drugs and things like that and the way that that impacted the fathers and being able to be available and present in the homes, right? And you have that cycle that I think plays a significant role. But I'm gonna try to take a whack at it from another angle. Um, I remember there's a comedian, Ali something, I forgot his name, but he was talking to somebody and he was talking. Oh yeah, he was talking to an Asian guy, and he was talking to an Asian guy, and the question was like something along like, who is this? He's talked about how like who is the strongest um, racial group, like who's the right, and something like that. I forgot the question, and essentially the Asian guy responded, and he says because he said something. I think Ali was like taking pride in his own. He's like, oh no, he's like you guys are the easiest. He's like, why you say that? He's like, you guys are the easiest to divide. He's like, when all hell breaks loose, he's like, whites stick together, Hispanics stick together, the Jews stick together. But he said what doesn't happen is black people don't stick together. I remember they talked about in prisons. It's interesting. They talked about how like, and again, I'm just listening to different inmates on YouTube, right? And they were talking about this. They said that in some of these maximum security prisons, they say that the whites and Hispanics actually team up, and the blacks are like by themselves, like no race, like it's just the way it is, right? And you could quickly see in prison environment, you immediately have to align with your race, right? It's just kind of the way it is if you want any chance. Um, but I think what makes, and this would be true about every single race, right? But I'm just gonna say for black people, it's like when black people unite, they are some of the. I mean, that's why in prisons you have the whites and Hispanics working together against the blacks, right? It's like when black people stick together, like they're a very powerful group. Again, every race sticking together is a powerful group. But there's something when it comes to specifically in certain industries, right? Typically, when it comes to anything that's physical or athletic, like we could be hard. Now, even when you get into music, you can now
Mhm.
start getting to the art, right? And it's like there's some advantages, right? When it comes to fashion, right? I mean, look at I'm probably not a I'm not this can go off in the rabbit trail, but you look at somebody the influence of like a Kanye West, right? He can literally half the world could think he's lunatic. This guy went from zero to billion to back to zero, back to a billion, right? But it's like he is very skilled when it comes to art. Whether you think he's sane or not, he has certain gift that's just supersedes everything. When you look at his music, everything he's touched has produced gold from his ambition. So I guess maybe to answer your question, Kenny, now I can get to answer the question. I think the reason is because I think you have black people united, and I think what you don't have today is unification. I
Mhm.
think you don't have a unification in the home, and I think anytime you can, the home is the again the lack of fathers in the home. Again, the reason you can point to a lot of reasons why that man might not be in the home, but the act of him not being in the home, right? And people would say that the welfare programs and this, like essentially, you have the black woman that's married to the government, right? The government is providing all the stuff that a black woman needs to the point where she doesn't even feel like she needs the man in the house anymore, right? And it's like then that cycle just continues. So why is it that a group in the late 1800s, right after the civil the Emancipation Proclamation. Once all that happens, why is it possible that once blacks are freed, that you can have a thriving community? It's because they stuck together. You can also look at why, in the very early, when you look at the slave trade, right? And a lot of people think that, slave trade was a racial driven thing. It was an economic driven thing. Every race
Mhm.
was doing it. And you have black people, their own people selling to the Europeans.
Mhm.
The Europeans took them to America, right? And what you actually start to see early on is the poor whites, right? Maybe the rednecks, right? And the poor blacks, the slaves, I mean, there were people that were white that were slaves. People don't
Mhm.
even know this at the time. And there was a unification that was happening between the whites and the blacks. And the elite class saw it from a distance and they found a way to divide them, right? And they said, hey, you whites, you're poor, but you're not as bad as these Negroes over here, right? So then now you have a class below the white poors versus where you had the whites and the black together, where things looked a lot different. That's when the racial tension started to really grow, is when that distinction was made. And so even though this white person is a slave to this white person, right? It's even though that was happening, the poor white saw themselves, at least I'm better off than that Negro over there. So again,
Yeah.
back to, I think, is unification. The lack of unification, I think, is why you can be in such a thriving, where we have more rights than we've ever had. We have more freedom than we've ever had,
Mhm.
and yet it doesn't seem like we're thriving as a group versus back then where they barely have any freedom, and somehow their life just seems to be better. But anyway, go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, I just want to
Or
say,
Adrian.
Adrian. Yeah,
yeah,
Adrian.
I think one thing that also happened. What happened in, oh man, 2000? I was gonna say 2008.
I talk about the
Obama.
election. Okay. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Obama got in, and it's one thing a lot of us, and I say us, I mean people in color, people of color in general, said we've made it. We got a black president, and stopped working, stopped doing what we had to do to make sure we continue what what was, I don't say gifted to us, but what we accomplished. Let's be real. We all accomplished that by coming together and voting. And after 8 years, it went to pot. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to endorse any candidate or anything like
No,
that.
no.
I mean, but I'm just saying, and people be like, what happened to the world after that? I mean, you saw what happened. We see what happened again. We stop working together because once we get in our heads about we've made it, and a lot of us stop working thinking we don't have to do anything else without thinking that the world's going to keep going if we stop. Even if we stop, the world's going to keep going. And the thing is, do we keep working to stay up with the world and lead the world, or we let the world pass us by? At that time, the world passed us by from after Obama left office, and now we're looking at, oh, what we gonna do? What we gotta do? We put our hands on the plow, get back to work, pull up a brother, pull up a sister, do what we have to do. Stop thinking that we made it once you have one victory. Life is a series of victories and a series of losses. Our problem, not problem, I think is to take, and this is something that we, people of color, do very well, is take lemons that have been given to us and make some lemonade out of it. I remember growing up many times, my mom and pop, they didn't have money growing up, but they always found a way to make sure we had food. And again, I'm a big boy, so I had no loss of food. I didn't miss too many meals. But my mom always, she made something called flitter cakes. What is a flitter cake?
You
Sounds
tell
like
me.
And I'm like, what is a flitter cake? But it looked like pancakes. And she just used basic flour, water, and some baking soda or baking powder. And I'm like, huh? I mean, and I tried it one time. It looked like paste, but something about what our people can do. We take the most media of things and work. that make something great.
I
That
think
is
you could look
work.
at that with just even fashion. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, right?
Yes,
But it's
yes.
like you want something to be cool, give
Hmm.
it to the hands of a black person. It's game over,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Look,
It's as soon
I,
as you could look at this in the schools, you can look at it in sports, like you can look at a lot of the dances. Everything is like as soon as a black person touches it, it jumps onto a whole new level, right?
I,
And
I,
good.
yeah, I remember growing up. The one thing we was embarrassed about is having holes in our pants.
Mm.
Holes in the legs of our pants and everything. We will always get these off-color patches and put them on. But now we
That's
got people that buy clothes with holes in it.
Bro,
That
that's one
pays
of the
70 to
biggest.
a
That's one
yes.
of the biggest. What was the word? I don't know how the clothing industry was able to sell us pants with holes in them.
I
It
said, no,
was
why?
like just, all they could think to themselves, "Dang, yeah, I could save some fabric. Heck yeah, we'll put some holes in some
less
of these
pants for
things."
more money.
Yeah. And I'm like, I remember growing up, we had this for free.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
get
yeah.
these for free. And now they're charging $100 for it. I'm like,
Dude, I
oh yeah,
remember
100.
my brother. I remember
To
my
make my
brother
own
Dana.
pants.
I remember in middle school, my brother Dana. I think he was in high school. I would have been in middle school. I remember him pulling out his jeans and cutting holes in them with the scissors. I swear on everything. I remember him cutting it. I was just like, but okay. So here's another thing that I would add on, because you brought up Obama that I was very interesting. Um, I feel like there's a school of thought of well, so the idea is right. You hear this in the business world, which is they'll say like, culture eats strategy for breakfast,
Mm,
right? It doesn't matter what it is, but it's like whenever you start a business, anything, at the end of the day, the thing that's going to win is it's culture. Culture will win. And there's a certain point where, it's known as a tipping point. After a certain percentage, like if you want to, let's say you have 100 people in a room, right? Let's say 100 people, and let's say there's a certain way everybody's doing it. I think the percent is somewhere between 16 to 18%. If you can get 16 to 18% of the room to do something, that's known as that's the tipping point. Then you can get the whole mass to operate in that way. It just takes a little amount of people to get it going, right? Or somebody's dancing in a space where everybody's standing still. If you can get a couple people to join in the dance, eventually you'll have everybody go onto the dance floor, right? Is that
mm,
initial thing is really really challenging. Well, when it comes to again back to the culture eat strategy for breakfast, one of the things that sometimes happen is it also is what you celebrate you replicate, right? What you
mm,
celebrate you replicate, and there's a I think it was Eddie Griffin talks about this. He said, when Obama won, they're like, we won, and he asked the question. He's like, what did we win? Right? The question is, what did we win? Yeah, we got a black person in the office. Okay, but what did we actually win?
mm,
And I remember when Obama got off of when he got done with his second election, there was a lot of questions of what actually happened for black people. Like, how did black people's life actually change, right? And some would even push and say that he was more effective for the LGBTQ community and their progress than he was for black people and their progress. Now, I'm not trying to go into whether that's true or not. I'm just saying some languages and
You
thoughts
know,
that
some
yeah,
were,
arguments being made.
yeah, that people would
yeah.
say, right? And so, but I sometimes wonder who are, like, in the black community specifically, it's like who are our idols? Who are the people that we celebrate?
Mm,
And I don't often hear the celebration happening on a daily level, right? You talked about people that have influenced you. Your teachers played a
mm,
significant role. I know for me, my teachers, and I was in Boy Scouts, and so my scout leaders played a significant role in my
mm,
life. So you often will hear me celebrate those people in my life. Then you hear me. I talk a lot about LeBron James. Don't get me wrong. I talk about a lot of athletes. I love sports,
mm,
but um, Charles Barkley talks about how when he went to the inner cities and he would ask people like, who do you want to be? And he talks about how when he goes to a white community, they all want to be doctors, engineers. But it's like, what doctor is famous that we all idolize? That's not, you know what I mean? It's like, that's not a thing. What
mm,
engineer is famous that we all idolize? I can't tell you any engineers, right?
No.
Maybe the only one I could think of is Da Vinci. When you talk about engineer, right? That's where my head goes into is Da Vinci. When you talk about artists, right? But in the black community, when you talk about who are the people that they look up to, these famous people that have established some heights that very minute. So
Mm-hmm.
again, Charles Barkley says when he goes to white schools and he talks, they all want to be doctors, engineers, lawyers. When he goes to black communities, right, and he speaks to the youth, they want to be LeBron James, they want to be Jay Z, they want to be Kanye West, they want to be these people. So I just wonder if maybe that's Kenny. I wonder if that's also a problem, or maybe something that we should all evaluate is what are the things that in the black community we celebrate, and is that
So
actually helping us? Go ahead, Kenny.
you got a good point there. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was at my children's home restaurant, and for life is New York for work. So I decided, just took him out for a little bit. And this restaurant was obviously going to be so big. And we sit for Guinness and Wilkins and Cokes, and we were just shouting, like, and I was teasing them all. Behind me was a black family, and they were doing some, they were doing what's a thing called, like, the Russian questions for the,
Mm-hmm.
they were doing for the,
Mm-hmm.
and so they asking questions, and the black family, they'd be writing down, chatting with each other, asking questions, laughing. In fact, it went so on until one of the black gentlemen had me give me a nudge, and continued to get into what was happening. It was fun. Yeah, I laughed. It was a great time. And I thought to myself, that's a beautiful type. I kid you not. Um, maybe it's because I'm particularly fond of uh, black, healthy black people doing right, being right, and having a good time. But I kid you not, there's nothing more fun than a black people. You know what I mean? When black
Mm-hmm.
people get together, they know how to have fun, they know how to laugh, and
Mm-hmm.
it's shy, they laugh when a black man likes to laugh. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's laughing. And he laughed, and we laughed, we had a great time, and it was full. And I was leaving, I heard him whisper, he said, he's asking. And so they could see him in all way, but still, and it was a great time. And I realized, so the black man is not a monster, period. The black man is a man, not your typical man, not in the sense of what we do as a typical man. Because there's a narrative in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The black man is a man. He is not like, just like the Chinese man is different from, I don't think we're all the same. I don't. I think there's a regional difference. But we're all different. Doesn't mean that intellectually, physically, we're all different. But intellectually, I believe that um, we can all hold each other at least. That's our task. I say that there is um, there's a part, there's a part of the black culture that's wonderful and it's beautiful when it's working well. Family
Mm-hmm.
get-togethers, the inspirations, and we're speaking very honestly to each other. You know, um, you ever seen a white man speak to his son about what not to do and what to do after raising him right? It's very interesting because it's telling him things that you wouldn't ordinarily hear an average father say. You know, there's a sense of honesty, there's a sense of realness there. Well, that's not right in culture, and that's just the part you're talking about. I agree with the not rightness in culture. Is this
Mm-hmm.
who do you celebrate? Why do we celebrate violence? Why? Not just violence, because I don't think there's anything wrong with violence. I think violence is a means by which one defends themselves and defends those they love near property. Period. I think violence is perfectly fine under the right context. However, I do not think that um, I don't think that our violence currently is the right kind of violence. I think we celebrate violence. I think we overemphasize violence and we overemphasize parts of violence that is um, and it's destructive not even to the rest of the world, but to us in particular. So I think that the culture is perhaps the culture is beautiful, it's fine, and I think it should be left alone. The other half of the culture needs to be destroyed and rebuilt. And I've never been one to tell the young black men to not be violent. I think you need to add something to it. You need to add self-control. You need to add wisdom. You need to have understanding. You need to add love. Because without these things, you're a wild animal. It's just the case. You're anybody who behaves like that, black, white, it doesn't matter. If you have a higher propensity for violence, a lower propensity for self-control, and these other things, you become a wild animal. And so there is this wildness that needs to be broken away. And the mind needs to be illuminated. Kindness, love, mercy, education, wisdom. These things need to be added to the culture so that we celebrate when somebody's courageous, we celebrate that. Not courageous in the sense of he didn't kill somebody, without thinking about it. But courageous in the sense that they stand up for each other. Kindness, mercy. They take care of their people, their communities, not just their people health, take care of anybody that needs help. I think there are things that needs to be re-emphasized. And you're right, George, there's a part of it. This is what fathers teach us, right? This is what every good father teaches his son. This is what every good father teaches his daughter. And I think that is one of the biggest problems. This is one of the biggest um, um, both handicaps that we have.
Yeah.
I'm
What do you
with
think
you.
about that, Adrian?
I'm with you. When you said that we celebrate the violence, that hit me because let's be real, we do celebrate that. We celebrate. I mean, it just by virtue of looking at some of the TV shows we got. What's one of the most popular shows out there? Power.
Hmm.
And I haven't seen. I can admit I haven't seen. I don't know anything about it except for what I hear. But every I talk here, someone's killing somebody, drugging, and all of this, and I'm like, wow, that. I remember Empire. All these things we all celebrate.
Look at World Star Hip Hop.
What
Yeah.
love and hip hop.
World Star is that's. I mean, I think that
World's
might be a great. Yeah, that's a good one.
and it's just that and although like we celebrate all these violence and everything, but we don't see any other news shows like A Different World. I grew up loving that show, and even to Cosby's
Family
and
matters.
Family Matters. And I'm gonna be real, A Different World is what got me wanting to go to an HBCU,
Bro, I think Uncle Phil taught me more about life than a lot of people.
and especially
Uncle
that
Phil.
one episode,
Oh man.
especially that episode,
No.
and that
Okay, I'm
one
not trying to
episode
cry, man.
when,
Don't do it. Don't
when
do it. Don't do it. Just five
you know
minutes.
I'm going. Well,
Just
Will the
one
Curtain
episode.
when they got pulled over.
Yeah.
And they got that Uncle Phil, man, he said, get my boys out there, you be tied up in so much litigation, your grandkids gonna need lawyers. I'm like, ooh, I love that. And it's those characters. We don't see that anymore. We don't see characters like that that we can look up to and be like, yo, I see me in that. That
Let
could
me
be
tell you
me.
Oh,
that, Adrian.
that
Let me
one,
tell
that
you.
one was, Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince. Yeah, yeah. But no, that's
Yes.
Uncle
Fresh
Phil.
Prince.
Uncle
Yeah,
Phil.
yeah,
Uncle
okay,
Phil.
yeah, okay, 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 yeah. I thought it was the thing. Okay.
What's interesting is the Uncle Phil's. Here's what I would say. Um, the reason I think we don't see the Uncle Phils in the world. Again, I think it's because the people that we celebrate isn't the Uncle Phils. The
Yeah,
people
we
that
also,
move
yeah,
us, the people that move us with emotion, like move us, are actually the Uncle Phils. But the people
Mm-hmm.
that we aspire to be are, I don't think are the best examples to pursue. I don't want those people, but it's like, but I mean, it's interesting. You listen to even somebody like Lil Wayne, right? A lot of people idolize Lil Wayne. If you ever listen to his interview, he talks about his friend Bill or no, Bob. right? His name is Bob, and it's a white cop who, when
Mm.
he got shot, he talks about how all these black policemen went over his body because he accidentally shot himself. And it was this white cop, Bob, who like told everybody to stop doing what they're doing because they're trying to get the drugs, right? They break into the door, they're trying to get all the drugs. And he talks about how this white cop, Bob, is the one that actually ends up saving him. Um,
Mm.
but again, the reason I highlight that story specifically is more of like, I think that if we actually took a step back and looked at our life and said, who are the people that actually impacted us? I think we will
Mm.
realize that there is Uncle Phil's all around us.
Hmm.
I think what it is those stories are not
That
those
toe.
stories are not lifted up,
Right.
but rather the people that are lifted up are, again, I'm just picking these up just because they're icons, but it's like it's these people that yeah, I just don't want to open up cans, but I think we know where I'm going with this. But
Yeah, exactly.
it's, but I again, back to what you celebrate, you replicate. I'm sitting there, we sat down with you, we had a conversation. You didn't say any famous people that impacted you in ways. I mean, the people that you talked about were people that are going to die in history and people are really not going to know them. And they impacted you significantly.
Hmm.
Um, and I think in the black community, I don't think we lack those individuals. I think we just don't lift up those individuals.
Exactly. That is exactly it. We don't lift up our own. We'll talk
Yep.
about them. Oh, let something bad happen. We gonna talk about them for years.
Yep.
Maybe 50 years down the line, we done forgot what happened. We still gonna talk about them, but we do not lift each other up. We're we tear down, but we don't lift up.
One of the peoples that I like that's I've never met. I hope one day I get to meet. And again, I'm just so I a lot of people that know me know this. I think it is absolutely impressive the resume that LeBron James is able to build since
Hmm.
2003. Again, you can disagree with his political stance,
Hmm.
but in the black community, as far as again,
No
somebody that's
scandals.
been exalted, I'm just talking a person that's been exalted to the highest of highs,
Hmm.
right? Everybody seemed to have fallen, right? Even Bill Cosby ended up falling, right, at
Yeah.
some point, right? And but I'm saying like you have this person like LeBron James that's able to keep his family intact, right? He's gotten kids that are thriving. He's helped his high school friends succeed. There's
Hmm.
nobody in the past that has anything negative to say about this man. He
Right.
has continued excellence to age 40, right? It's like in the craft that he's in, he's able to hold it, right? Now, again, I'm not necessarily, but it's like somebody like that, everybody is waiting for his downfall. If you see the way that people talk about him, right? It's like they're waiting for him to fall. They want to see him fall. So even when somebody like that is lifted, what do? We compare him against Michael Jordan and we find ways to diminish why he's not who he is. Like it's this unnecessary battle that happens, right? And a lot of people around me, they don't like him because, well, basketball is not what it is. It's like it's evolution. Okay, just get over it. Things change. But it's like this individual is, I mean, what he did with the I Promise School, right? He tried
Hmm.
to essentially promise all these kids he'll pay for their tuition,
Hmm.
right? Which is insane amount of money. You know what people say about it? The people shot down the what people say about it is, well, it's not one of the best schools. Here's the problem with the schools. It's like all these XYZ. It's like we can't even celebrate the fact that a man is trying to create a school to help the inner city kids in which he's paying for their college when they get to that level. We can't even celebrate that because what we're focused on is, well, look at their test scores. They didn't do so well. It's like, can we talk about how we make it better rather than, you know what I mean?
Look.
So it's this weird tension. But
Yeah.
I know we got to wrap up. But Adrian, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts. Kenny, if you guys have closing thoughts, we're definitely gonna have to all have you on again, Adrian. Like seriously.
Yeah,
But
I'm looking
yeah, some
forward
closing
to
thoughts.
coming on again. I had a great time. I just say, y'all, everyone, remember, no matter what you believe in, God is in you. You are enough. Let your haters make you famous.
Come on, Mr. Kenny. You got any closing thoughts?
Adrian, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to meet you. And thanks for chatting with us. It was a great time.
No problem. I'm looking forward to doing it again whenever y'all ready. You let me know.
Uh, absolutely, absolutely, Adrian. One of the things that Kenny and I are going to try to do is we just think it'd be interesting if we tried this idea. We did it with Donovan. I think we'd like to try with you. Is if you potentially we have a speaker for next week, but if there's somebody that you feel like we should have on the pod that you think would be somebody that we should connect with, we would love to connect with that person. One of the things that I've learned, and we talked about numbers and statistics and stuff. They said back in the '70s, you were about 7 relationships away from anyone in the world. But now with social media and everything, we're like 2 or 3, right? I'm 3 relationships away from the president, which means I'm 4 relationships away from anybody, any leader. You know what I mean? Like that. That's how insane it is. So, if you could put some thought into maybe who you think should be our next guest speaker, we really don't care. As you can see, we kind of like to freestyle and let the
Yeah.
conversations go where it goes. But yeah, we could
All
talk about
right.
it after.
All right. Sounds cool.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well,
All right.
with that, Adrian, I know you love WWE, so let's ask you this question. We have to. Who are your Mount Rushmore 4 characters in
Oh
WWE?
man. If we're going straight WWE, I would go. Let's see. Stone Cold Steve Austin,
Come on,
Undertaker,
come on,
uh, Triple H,
come on. Let's go.
Yeah.
Hit it. Close it
and
out.
I'm trying that third one. I want to
A
say
fourth.
Booker
No, not
T.
a
I
fourth.
want to say Booker T because
It's got to be a fourth.
yeah, I said three already, didn't
Yeah.
I?
So this is your
Austin,
fourth.
Taker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would
Triple
be
H.
Booker. It would be Booker T
Booker T.
because he continue because not only is he a great wrestler, he's turning out to be a great commentator, and he's
Uh-huh.
training guys to be a good wrestler, great wrestlers as well.
Dude, nobody threw facial expressions like Booker T. Washington. Not Booker T. Washington. I'm just Booker T.
Booker
Nobody threw
T,
facial expressions. Dude, his
especially that King Booker,
dude, his wife annoyed the heck out of me, dude. Cause she be doing so. Oh
Queen
my god.
Charmel,
Oh my
man.
god, dude.
Yeah.
But dude,
Before you roll out yesterday, what about top favorite Dragon Ball Z characters that I'd like to?
It's always easy to say Vegeta for me. Vegeta. If we're ever going for him, would be Vegeta. Trunks.
yep,
Little Trunks, not the future one. I don't know why I don't like the future one too much. I actually like Krillin
yep.
and Tien.
I dude, what's interesting? I'm surprised Piccolo didn't make that roster for you. I thought you were gonna say Piccolo.
I think about it, I would probably go with Piccolo because Piccolo, he's yeah,
Because Vegeta, actually, if you think about it, I think there's only like 3 or 4 characters in Dragon Ball Z that actually had a character transformation. Vegeta's number one. Like Goku did not
yeah,
change. There's nothing. The only time Goku changed is when he hit his head
yeah,
as a baby. Other than that, Goku has just been the same.
yeah.
Vegeta actually has a character
The character,
change.
yeah,
Oh man, Piccolo, another character change, right? His relationship
yeah.
with
With
Gohan.
Gohan,
That's yeah. But besides that, I don't really know. I've realized as much as Goku Dragon Ball Z is the goat of, I think it's the father of animes.
Sure.
There's really not much. Oh, Dragon Ball Z. Oh, Kenny, please. Dragon Ball Z is the father of anime. I'm sorry, it's just the way it
yeah.
is.
Yeah. We
I told
have,
you,
we have,
Naruto.
you have Kenny the
Go.
North Star. You
Like you're
have
gonna say something like
Ranma.
Demon Slayer. Let me hear this.
No,
Let
no,
me
no.
hear you say
Demon
something like
Slayer is
Demon.
just talking about old school, talking about the Kenny the North Star.
Okay, okay.
Ranma. Um,
You know a show that I hope they redo? Yo Yo Hakusho. I hope they redo that.
Yu Yu
I heard they
Hakusho.
were
Seriously.
working
Thank
on
you.
that. I heard they were
Are
working on
they?
that.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's good
I
to
need to
hear.
catch up on some of the older ones I've been watching. The My Hero Academia. I need
Oh,
to
that's
So
catch.
that's yeah.
I
the
need to
one that I
follow.
need to watch, everybody says is I haven't seen it yet, is Alchemist. My boy Josh Kreben always tells me I need to watch
Full Metal
Alchemist.
Okay.
Alchemist.
Full Metal, yeah,
I
I need
heard
to
that was
watch that.
good. That and I want to say One Piece, but they're like well over 1,000 episodes. Like I can't start from
Uh,
episode one, but that's
I
too far.
I would like to let
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, can't be there's to like
Well, all right. Well, we'll catch up later, brothers.
All
Adrian,
right.
absolute gift having you. Kenny, always good having you. And then Adrian, we'll follow up with you as far as the next person. But
Okay.
anyways,
Sounds good.
Talk to you guys
Thank
later.
you. Yeah, have a great one. Y'all be blessed.
Thank you.
All right.